In the news from Dorchester, there's good news about vaccine distribution and a surge of new candidates for city council, not to mention the widening field for mayor. To help us keep track of the possibilities is the managing editor and publisher of the Dorchester Reporter, Bill Forry. Thank you very much for being with us, Bill.
You bet, Chris.
Bill, one thing that's on a lot of people's minds right now is how to get an appointment for the COVID-19 vaccine. What's going on with that in Dorchester?
Well, there's been some good developments over the last week, Chris, and mainly because of the excellent network of community health centers that we already have in place in Dorchester. We're fortunate in Dorchester and Mattapan and throughout the city of Boston, really, to have a very strong network of community health centers with the infrastructure and staff and expertise, and most importantly, connections to patients close to their homes. And so what happened in the past week is Cobbin Square Health Center and Mattapan Community Health Center both teamed up with hospital partners and with the state to begin vaccinations at two venues in the neighborhoods where people are accustomed to going already. One is at Morning Star Baptist Church on Blue Hill Avenue, which is being administered by the Mattapan Community Health Center. And then, frankly, a bigger one at the Russell Auditorium on Talbot Ave, which is close to Franklin Field. The Russell is a place where many people throughout the generations have gone for weddings and celebrations and parties. And now Cobbin Square Health Center has stood up a vaccination site there that is currently servicing a couple hundred people a day, but soon will be able to vaccinate about 1,000 people a day, really close to home. And we talked to Sandra Cotterell, the CEO of Cobbin Square Health Center, about this yesterday. She's really excited to be able to bring in particularly Black and Brown residents of Dorchester, Mattapan, who are the patient pool that they're already working with. And there's been some concern, as you know, Chris, that particularly among Black Bostonians, that there was a reluctance. Polling had showed that there was a bit of reluctance among many to come and get vaccinated. The intent here is really not only to make this a convenient place, but to make it a familiar place for people to come get vaccinated. Obviously, the pool of those who are eligible right now is still relatively compact, but we have been seeing a growing volume of people going to the Russell and to Morningstar to get their shots, and that's a very good sign, Chris.
Well, you can live near a vaccine site, you can be eligible, but if you can't get an appointment, you're out of luck. So how are these community agencies helping people get across that barrier?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So obviously the state site has been swamped, and on last week it failed. And today there's a huge backup. People can call the Cobbin Square Health Center, for example, and arrange for an appointment directly through Cobbin Square Health Center. That's something that is an option. Obviously, people can also sign up for, go online to the state website, and if they can get through, register with, to get it at Fenway Park or Reggie Lewis Center or a Walgreens potentially. But I would recommend folks who are familiar or already patients of Cobbin Square Health Center or other health centers to call them or to go on their websites and see what the mechanisms are. And what we've been told is that folks who live in Dorchester can get appointments readily at Russell Auditorium if they are eligible to get them.
I also want to check in with you because I know the mayor had an announcement this morning. Is there anything new about the transition in City Hall?
Good question. So there is some news this morning on two fronts. We're really watching two capitals, the U.S. Capitol and our own State House here in Boston for movement. The home rule petition that will bypass a mayoral special election here in Boston has been on Beacon Hill now for about a week. The State House, the House of Representatives voted to approve the home rule petition on Monday, and the State Senate is expected to approve it in the next hour or so as we speak here on Thursday, Chris. That'll next go to Governor Baker, and when he gets it, he has said he will sign that bill. What that bill will do is it'll cancel out any special election requirement for, when Marty Walsh leaves, and we expect he's going to leave in the next week or so. That would usually trigger a special election if that resignation comes before March 5th, which is next Friday. But so that's, we're watching that. And down in Washington, we've been asking the U.S. Senate repeatedly, like, when is Mayor Walsh's confirmation vote going to come to the floor of the U.S. Senate? Last week, his nomination was ruled favorable by a Senate committee that has vetting powers over that nomination. But the full U.S. Senate has to still vote through Mayor Walsh's confirmation as Labor Secretary. That is not going to happen this week. We learned that this morning through sources on Capitol Hill, but we do expect it to come up next week for a vote. So the sequence here would be Mayor Walsh gets confirmed probably sometime next week. He would then resign as mayor of Boston, and City Council President Kim Janey would take over as mayor, as acting mayor of the city on that same day. She's been assembling a transition team. They've started to meet, and she's also hired some staff, Chris, including Chris Osgood to be her chief of staff. Chris Osgood has been is a 15-year veteran of City Hall, came in under Tom Menino's administration, and has been a key aide to Marty Walsh, most recently running the city's transportation department. So a very well-seasoned and well-respected person there to assist the next mayor, Kim Janey.
So since the last time we talked, I think we have one newly announced candidate for mayor, another one who's likely, and probably more than that.
Yes, State Representative John Santiago has jumped into the race. That happened on Tuesday morning. Representative Santiago is in the South End and also represents like Beacon Hill and the Back Bay. So he's not as well known in the neighborhoods that we cover in Dorchester and Mattapan, but he is going to be a candidate for mayor. He's the first, kind of incumbent elected official who's a man who's running. But John Barros is also expected to run. John Barros is currently the City of Boston's economic development chief. He ran for mayor of Boston in 2013, and then was hired basically by his rival, Marty Walsh, when he won. They've been allies since. And Barros is a Dorchester resident, Cape Verdean, very well known in the nonprofit community and the business community in the city, and would be a significant candidate, as is John Santiago joining the race, which is now basically a 5-person race if Barros gets in. He is resigning from his post in Mayor Walsh's cabinet, according to reporting on Friday, this coming tomorrow. So we do expect him to join the race potentially as soon as next week.
Well, one thing we know for sure is that there will be a new city councilor in Mattapan and Dorchester's District 4 because Andrea Campbell is running for mayor. Looks like you get quite a few people interested in that seat.
Quite a few, Chris. Every day or so, we have a new name to report because there are now 10 people in the race, and it's an interesting field. It's mainly people who have been active in civic and not really, nobody who's running in this race so far has ever run before, to my knowledge. So it's an interesting field of newcomers, all African-American at this point. District 4 covers Mattapan and Dorchester, and we expect that there could even be more candidates who enter. I don't want to go through all the names because, in fairness, we're still learning more about them, but folks who want to get a look at them and get an early sense as to what they're, who they are and what they're proposing can check them out at our website, .news.com. The field won't be set, Chris, until well into May. So there's room for people to get in or get out of this race, but it's a big field in a district that is, it's going to be quite competitive, I think.
Some changes are also happening right now at the Harper campus for UMass Boston. Going back to the 1970s, I'm thinking of a place that a lot of people thought of as forbiddingly industrial, but some of that is, I guess, disappearing. Right.
Yeah. UMass Boston is right now really deep into a major demolition project on its campus to take down some buildings that were, part of the original campus when it was built out in the early 1970s. And it was built out in very much a flawed way, actually. Some of the structures that are coming down include the underground or substructure of the campus that included a parking garage hasn't really been in use for more than a decade because it was so poorly built back in the 70s that it became a hazard to use it. So it's been closed off for a long time. This project is going to take down that structure. It's also going to take down one of the larger buildings, one of the red brick buildings on the campus that used to house the science complex. A new science complex building was built on the campus several years ago and has been, in use. So this project is intended to take down some of these old structures and open up some green space on this campus, which has largely been kind of fortress-like in appearance over the decades, and will now start to take on a different form and feel, not only for the people who go to school there or teach there, but for the public who access the campus along the Dorchester Harbor Walk. So this is an expensive project, $137 million, and it's also going to kind of sync up with what's happening at the Bayside site. Some of the new space that's going to be carved out on the central campus will accommodate new parking, outdoor parking, that will be lost when the Bayside Expo site is redeveloped, as it's going to be in the next couple of years.
No, I know one of the other things that's been going on in a gradual but very important way at UMass is rethinking the mix of students there. I'm sure you don't want to see it gentrified to the point where a lot of people in Boston are excluded, but they must be thinking of trying to widen their appeal with a project like this.
I think that this is part of a project, a 25-year campus master plan that has been in conceive mode and then now execution mode for about 10 years. Much of this work was done under the administration of Dr. Keith Motley, and it's just now coming to fruition because, frankly, some of the funding has come online. So this has been a long-term vision of UMass, of President Meehan, and the chancellors at UMass Boston's campus. And I think, yeah, it is changing in some respects the demographics of the campus, but it remains kind of the the signature campus in Boston for UMass. And it's good to see actually this sort of investment being made, and what many people argue should be the flagship actually of the UMass system.
Well, thank you very much for taking us through all of that and taking the time to be with us.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.
That was Bill Forry from the Dorchester Reporter. We'll have more news in just a moment.